Well, that's the ultimate complaint that I have about Stuff Plus is it doesn't quantify how specifically how repertoire can work together to confuse the hitter, right? Corbin Burns is the prototypical example, and shocker, the Milwaukee Brewers were semi ahead of this, and Devin Williams is another great example of a guy who needed his other pitches that may have graded out below average to complement the pitch that was his out pitch, right? Corbin Burns, if you've ever watched Corbin Burns pitch when he was with Milwaukee, and obviously he's dealt with injuries since leaving, but even in Baltimore to a certain extent, what had made him so successful is he had an elite cut ride fastball, right? It was a rising cutter, and when he first started throwing it, it was elite and he was dominant. And all he really needed was that. And I used to get frustrated sometimes when you look at his overall profile and be like, why is he still throwing this sinker 16% of the time? Why? And then you go watch him pitch against the Cubs on Sunday Night Baseball one time. And what the Milwaukee Brewers do so well in game planning is they zig when you think they're going to zag, and they zag when they think you're going to zig. And what I mean by that is he goes, cutter, you're 0-2. Well, what he does is when you're thinking, oh, cutter again, further extended, he starts the sinker off the plate, the below average stinker by Stuff Plus. It runs back, strikeout looking. You're walking back to the dugout with your tail tucked between your legs. Right? Devin Williams, same thing. He struggled with the Yankees, and I know he's struggled again since the midseason. But one of the things the Yankees have prided themselves on, and I respect Matt Blake as a pitching coach so much, is throw your best stuff the most, right? Throw your best stuff. And so if you're Devin Williams, let's just fling that changeup in there 75% of the time. If you look at his first couple outings with the Yankees where he really struggled, his changeup percentage was up. And that's not a high in zone pitch for him. And guys were just spitting on him. Once they realized that he was throwing the changeup too much, they just stopped swinging at it, which then made his fastball play down. Devin Williams was in that perfect middle ground where the changeup would be 40%, the fastball would be, 45 to 50%, and then he'd have his other offerings there as well, just to keep hitters off balance enough to respect the fastball that might grade out as below average, or it might not have elite velocity, but being able to have something that comes from the same window and moves in separate directions just to confuse hitters. And that was something we talked about with Coach Hefner off record, was how it's not always about how elite the pitches are. When you have two pitches moving at the same velocity and one does this, and if you're not watching on YouTube, one goes left and one goes right, and the hitter thinks it's going to go left, but the one goes right, and it's the 15% usage pitch, that misses a barrel. It might not generate the nastiest sword whiff in the world, but it misses a barrel, soft contact, roller to the third baseman, easy out on the first pitch of the at-bat. That's how you win as a pitcher. And that's how you become a well-rounded arm.
Yeah, and I think that's what's always fascinating to me about trends, especially in baseball, where, it could happen in other sports. I just don't understand other sports the way I understand baseball, where when trends happen in baseball and you bring up the one that, the Yankees really have prided themselves on, and we saw it, right? It was like 2018 through 2021. It was throw your best pitch the most, no matter what, right? Shane Bieber won a Cy Young doing this, right? It was like, just throw it the most, throw it the most, throw it the most, throw it the most. I don't necessarily think that's the right thing to do anymore, right? And I was all aboard that trend back then as well, where it's like, we're going to throw the best pitch the most, forget everything else, right? We'll mix it in there, we'll show it, but why would we throw not our best pitch in big counts, behind, ahead, 3-2, no matter the count, throw the best one, whether it's off speed or not? I don't necessarily think that's the best game plan, as you said, anymore, because the offense has now adjusted, and like you just mentioned, where Devin Williams is sitting and you can just spin on the changeup, that changeup becomes way less effective when guys can just spin on it because it's not an in zone pitch. We have to be able to command it. What it did open us up to, which I think is the good part of this, and what's always funny with trends, is we always go way too far at the start, and then we have to come back to the middle, is like, you can throw your off-speed stuff more, right? We went from back in the day where it was like, set everything up based off the fastball, right? It's, oh, here comes a fastball most of the time. We're going to throw it low and away, at the knees, lower third, keep it there. We'll throw everything else off that. That worked. That was great. Hitters adjusted to that. We found out a way to do it. So then it was throw the best pitch the most. Hitters were still thinking in the fastball thing. That worked for a couple of years. Hitters adjusted to, hey, this guy's going to be, we have percentages. We can mimic the spin off with the machines we have. We can, We started using hack attacks more, like all those things, hitters adjusted. So now what do? Well, it's good to spin still, and it's good to spin more or throw your change up more or whatever. I think the thing that, like you're saying, and we've been kind of hammering here, is like, now what's the next adjustment for pitchers? I do think it's multiple fastballs, be able to throw multiple fastballs. And we kind of did the same thing where it was all velocity, all velocity, all velocity. Okay, well, now the hitters can hit that velocity. Now what's next? And it's kind of going back to, okay, well, we have to be able to pitch. You have to have pitchability. And I think the best way to start attacking pitchability is learning how to throw a sinker, a two-seamer, a four-seamer, cutter, just little ways to get to manipulate the baseball just a little bit to get off barrels. Because at the end of the day, the one thing that has never changed about the game of baseball is just try and avoid the barrel. If you're a pitcher, keep guys off time and try to avoid the barrel. Yes, there was also when all of this started too, all of them, by all of this, I mean the velocity training, the tech, all of this stuff, which has greatly made our pitchers better. Pitching Ninja also showed up around that time. It started posting all the nasty stuff and the swords, and these young pitchers were just chasing that. You don't get an extra strike for making a guy look stupid. You don't get an extra out for getting a strikeout. Like, disrupt timing, move the ball off the barrel. You're going to be a really successful, really good pitcher. And you're seeing it come back a little bit in Major League Baseball. With some of the top arms, you're seeing it come back a little bit, right? And that's why I never fully bought into Stuff Plus.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, at the top pitchers, yes. And what people, and like this is such a conversation that shouldn't be had, because so many people think when you say avoid the barrel, you're preaching, oh, you should pitch to contact and try to chase off. Whiffs are missing the barrel too, right? Like there's multiple ways to skin the cat.
Yes.
And we'd prefer whiffs, right? In the grand scheme, because
no bad
what's the batting average?
Happen.
Yeah, exactly. If a guy swing and miss, what's the batting average on balls in play, right? 0, right? Doesn't happen. And errors can't happen. We can't overthrow. We prefer whiffs. That's why the whiff revolution became a thing. But I think what, again, we're coming back to is there's an art to guys that also can put hitters in enough conflict where they get just soft enough conflict or contact where instead of that ball ending up in the seats, it's caught, right? Like Seth Lugo is a great example of a guy who has 7 average pitches, right? 7 average pitches. And honestly, probably 2 of them are below average in terms of how they move, in terms of the average of how his changeup moves or how his four seam moves. But what he does is he keeps hitters in conflict all the time because they don't know if it's going to cut. Is it going to ride? Is it going to sink? Is it going to dip? Is it going to 12-6, 11? Like whatever he's able to do, he's able to manipulate the baseball to do that. And sometimes you get those front foot swings where that ball that if the guy only had to focus on 3 pitches is probably in the seats, 15 rows deep, he has to ride out his front side. And instead of crushing it, he flies out to left, right? That's an out. At the end of the day, right? Like, is it the best pitch to throw in that situation? Well, as long as a guy is in off balance and you're disrupting timing from the hitter and getting off that barrel just a little bit, you're doing your job as a pitcher. And I think there's starting to become a value. And of course, it's a veteran guy like that. And I think that's part of why you see pitchers have so much more success later in their career is because they start to learn the art of that, right? I don't need to have the nastiest stuff each and every time I rear back and throw, right? There's like, again, guys like DeGrom are blessed that at 37, they're able to rear back and throw 101 by guys, right? Not everybody's able to do that. But the really elite pitchers that extend their career, the Zach Wheelers of the world, are able to understand how having multiple fastballs in the same speed window can get that just missed contact when he doesn't have his best stuff. And then when he shows up to the ball yard with his best stuff, 12, 14 punch outs, dominant through 8 innings, one of the most impressive things we've seen on a baseball field.